So I guess you could call this indie horror by writer-director Jonathan Kuratas. And I'm a little bit hesitant to call it horror because it's not really in your face about it most of the time. It plays a lot with suspense, mystery and tension, and there are some strong elements of drama here as well. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other category it would fit better than horror either. And it does actually play with some very classic and fairly common horror tropes too. It's actually a very interesting and unique take on a certain subgenre, which I'm not even gonna reveal here because I would definitely call that a spoiler. And I think I might have just coined a new term to describe this sort of movie too. Because I'd call this neo-gothic, which I googled and it doesn't seem to be a thing outside of architecture. But most people have heard of gothic horror, right? Well, this feels much like that, except the setting is a lot more modern. Just like how neo-westerns took elements and ideas from classic westerns and brought them to a more modern day setting. This one feels like it took ideas from gothic horror and cast them against a modern setting too, which inevitably brings with it some changes to how it must approach those ideas as well. But at the same time it also gives it the freedom to sort of do whatever it wants to do. But anyway, I think that's enough of that. So what is the movie actually about then? Well, the basic idea here is that we follow a brother and a sister who are taking care of their weak and sickly younger brother. What exactly is wrong with him isn't instantly apparent, but they love him and seem to try to help him in any way they can. And I don't want to get into any further details here, but that's also sort of the central theme of the movie as it turns out. Love, that is, and what someone might be willing to do in the name of love. How far will someone go in order to help their loved ones? That's kinda what the movie is getting at. And this is an interesting angle to approach a subject and an idea like this from. Now, as far as the general story here goes, it does reveal its cards fairly early on actually. It pretty much just tells you what's going on a basic level, and I was like, that's interesting. But that feeling was followed by the question, where is the story gonna go though? It just felt like a premise that had very few avenues it could realistically go down. But that uncertainty did also keep me engaged and intrigued as I wanted to know what would happen next. Now, it didn't actually come up with anything mind-blowing exactly, but I would still say how it handled this was a little bit surprising. It did manage to find a pocket I didn't expect, and I very much liked where this one ended up. Because the ending is actually very bittersweet, and you really don't see a lot of genuinely bittersweet endings these days. Most of the time movies either go with something pretty clear-cut and straightforward, which is the safe way of doing it, or they go with a more of an ambiguous ending, where you don't really know what's gonna happen next for sure. It just sorta leaves it up for interpretation. This one though, while being pretty clear-cut, still leaves you feeling a bit conflicted. As conflicted as the main character actually, and you still don't know exactly what's gonna happen next. And I very much liked that. I thought it found a fascinating way to end a rather interesting movie. Now, I did call it a horror movie, and there are certainly strong horror elements to this. There's even some gore and violence, but that's not exactly the most disturbing stuff. Because there are a couple of scenes that are just genuinely creepy and unsettling too. And this one just spaced those out and used them sparingly, to great effect I might add. And in the meantime it just utilized the tone and the atmosphere to make you feel a bit creeped out on a more subtle level for the majority of the runtime. And yeah, you know, I like this movie, but it was difficult to really connect with the characters here. So that did hold me back from loving this, and as a result I think I'm gonna give this one a solid 7. Boop. But would I recommend it? If you like slightly odd and offbeat low-budget horror, absolutely, check it out. And if that's not your cup of tea, probably skip this one or do whatever you want. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel because that would be fantastic.